The tale concerning the vampire at Berwick was first told by the highly respected Canon William of Newburgh and took place during the reign of Richard III in the 13th century. The plague was continually sweeping around the country at this time, wiping out whole towns and villages, Berwick being no exception on this devastating pestilence. A rich merchant thought to have been a victim of the plague had been regarded in life as a religious man, continually carrying out good deeds. However, after his death, his fellow citizens discovered that he had, in fact, led a corrupt criminal life, and he was refused a burial in consecrated ground. Shortly after his funeral, strange and terrible events started to take place in the town. The man, having lived a sinful life, was not allowed to rest in his grave, and each night he rose from his tomb in search of human flesh and blood amongst the people of the town. As he rushed demented through the streets, a pack of howling dogs pursued him, their wild baying allowing the citizens no rest. The tormented spirit was heard to shout, "Until my body is burnt, you folk of Berwick shall have no peace." The people of the town decided that this event could not be allowed to continue, and held a meeting to decide how to end the vampire's nightly reign of terror. 10 brave young men were selected to exhume the merchant's corpse, dismember the body, and burn it until only ashes remained. The inhabitants had hoped to avert any further tragedies in the town, but shortly after the destruction of the vampire, plague swept again through Berwick. It is said that as the plague victims were carried to their graves, some people still claimed to hear the distant baying of the hounds and the fearful screams of the vampire. A similar tale concerning Melrose, on the borders of Scotland and England, was also told by William of Newburgh. The vampire in this case had been a worldly priest, enjoying the material pleasures of life, but his great love was hunting, and it became known as the Hunderprest. After his death, his former mistress complained that he was haunting her bedchamber, terrifying her with his loud moans and groans. She appealed to the church for help, and 4 monks, well armed, kept watch over the grave of their former brother. They paced restlessly at the graveside as the fallen leaves crackled beneath their feet and a grey mist swirled up around them from the River Tweed. Expecting the Hunderpriest to show himself at midnight, the hour passed without incident, and being chilled to the bone, 3 of them sought shelter and warmth in a nearby cottage. No sooner had they left than the Hunderpriest, now a terrible monster, rushed at the remaining priest. The monk bravely stood his ground and swung his axe, driving it deep into the vampire. Groaning, the monster fled, the monk in pursuit, until it disappeared back into its own grave. The other 3 watchers returned but saw nothing, and at the first light of dawn the 4 men began to open up the grave. As they dug, blood oozed up through the clay, and when the corpse was finally revealed, it was found to be as fresh as when it was buried, apart from a gaping wound, bleeding profusely. They bore the terrible remains away from the monastery, the dead monk not fit to be within its sight, and burnt the corpse to ashes, the wind sweeping away any final traces.